Hello friends, welcome to another reading vlog. My name is Wilma, this is NB Reads, and in this vlog we're reading all queer vampire books. So in this reading vlog I'm going to be doing something crazy. That I've never done before is I'm going to be reading all of these books, hopefully. I usually manage to do no more than 3. This is a lot of books, 8 books I believe. It's because I've been wanting to do like a vampire reading vlog for such a long time, and the books just keep piling on, and there's even more queer vampire books than just these. But this is a little bit of everything. So this is going to take me maybe a few months to read, honestly, because I'm not reading very fast these days. So instead of showing you like my everyday life, what I'm eating for dinner, clips of me reading, etc., I will probably just update you 3 times for each book and see how that works as like a reading vlog format, just to try something new and try to fit it to like my actual schedule. So quickly, what you're going to be hearing me talk about. I'm going to start with this one today, Fawn's Blood by Hal Shreve. I think this is a young adult vampire book. I think it's kind of reminiscent of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and a year ago I like got really into Buffy the Vampire Slayer and I'm missing it, but I think it's too early to rewatch all of it. So instead I'll be reading this one, and kind of along the same veins. We have The Fell of Dark, which also has like a very much like a young adult Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibes. So this is to quench that thirst. This is Dead Collections by Isaac Feldman. I believe this is like a very modern day trans vampire story. I'm very excited about this one. Also the cover is just like really stunning. And then don't know if this is a good choice, but V. Schwab's new book. I have not read V. Schwab in like ages, such a long time, but I used to be really obsessed with like the Darker Shades of Magic and the Vicious Vengeful duology and stuff, and then I didn't read anything. Like I didn't read The Life of Ada LaRue or whatever it's called, but I was thinking like maybe I should give her another shot, because she's developed, I've developed, we're both different people now, but maybe we've grown alongside each other, and here's a vampire book. It's a lot thicker than what I read these days, but I want to give it a shot. This is a new release. I actually don't know what it's about, but it's like a gothic vampire story. I believe none of these so far are gothic, so just to diversify the vampire selection here in theme, I'm going to do like a gothic one. This is A Blood as Bright as the Moon by Andrea Morstabilini. And then we have like an anthology called Blood, Sweat, and Queers. This is vampire love stories. I think it's going to be quite a bit of smut. I'm excited for that. And then we have 2 like graphic novels, 1 manga called The Vampire in the Bathhouse. This is much lighter. I think I will be reading this, you know, to brighten the mood. And then this one, this is The Confessional, published by Silver Sprocket. Really beautiful art. Wow. So those are all the books. Wow. Wish me luck. I will update you again when I read a couple pages in this. Excited. Whoa. So, I should have updated you sooner. 100,000%. I'm still writing my name tag. So let me tell you about this book. I'm enjoying it so much. I'm actually past the halfway point. I ended up like not doing a clip, which is super annoying now, because I wish I would have like told you what it was about before I go into all my thoughts on it. Really enjoying it. You're following 2 perspectives, Rachel and Fawn. Rachel is kind of like the daughter of Buffy vibe. So her mom is a vampire slayer. She's part of this like brand of vampire slayers, and they're also selling merchandise online and stuff. In the first chapter, she gets bit by a vampire, and that complicates everything with her vampire slaying. And then you follow Fawn, who has run away from home because her crush or unofficial hookup ended their life, or did they? So they're Fawn is kind of going out there. She's looking for her best friend Silver, and she's also like obsessed with vampires, and it's kind of like what Fawn and Silver had together as like a joint interest. And then pretty much halfway through the books, the perspectives merge. Really cool, and I love the way that they merged together. It was like so fun when you saw like all these characters. That's kind of like a web that's been woven. Ow. Finally makes sense, and I really like that. I think this is really like a really fun new age way of like doing vampire lore and world building, because in this world, vampires are sort of a known thing. And during COVID, there was a huge like blood shortage, so the vampires were no longer able to get as much blood from the government, kind of the system they've set up here, and which led to a lot of like more underground coalitions of vampires finding other ways of getting blood and going like off these trackers that the government has set on them to be like good little vampires, normal little citizens. And so what's really fun about this book is like not only Rachel is lesbian and Fawn is a trans woman, and so it's like very queer all throughout in so many different ways, but it's also using vampires as like a huge metaphor for queerness or marginalization in some way, because the government is trying so hard to make them kind of like blend in, but they're kind of forming actually like a very like anarchist and care way of relating to each other and the world in these like tunnels, and the way they organize with each other. Like it feels a lot more similar to how activist movements that we like really admire have been functioning. The Slayers and the government, they don't like know about this, and they obviously don't care, you know, they just see them as these like villainous, murderous creatures. And the fact that it almost seems like okay that they're dying, the government's not doing too much about it when they're being killed by the Slayers, like there's just this whole thing that's just like a whole metaphor for queerness or marginalization in some way. Even something like this old vampire talking about all the history and how they've existed in so many different ways throughout history that has now been lost. So many like nuggets that are just really, really good. And I like this a lot because it is young adult, but it has a lot of like different, I think, very adult themes. And there's even like insinuations of like lust and sex without putting it on the page, which I think like I as a teenager would have really appreciated. This whole like imagery is explained very early on. Yeah, so I don't know why it's called Fawn's Blood yet. Very excited about continuing to read. Like I'm just having such a good time with it, and like what a banger to start off with, because it's so queer and so vampire that I'm like, where can we possibly go from here? Like this is the grand finale. But it makes me excited that I'm like actually vibing with young adult, because I haven't for such a long time. I will say that the writing is sometimes a little bit clunky, the way they kind of like jump from scene to scene, or things happen a little bit quickly sometimes, or certain phrasing is like not at its peak. But I think it's a debut, maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't mind it so much because the story and the characters and all their arcs, and like it's just like really well done. So I'm enjoying it a lot. I've been trying to find pockets where I can read more, but it's actually been like kind of a week since I updated you. This is how I set this vlog up to be. So really excited about this. The dishwasher is currently draining, so I'm gonna finish that. Then I'm gonna call me mother. I'm working on this huge like catalog, end of year catalog for the pot, and having so much fun with it, but obviously also very time consuming. So that's what's up at the moment. I'm gonna close. See you before the end of the book, hopefully. Hello, I'm at home now. I do not have much of Fawn's Blood left. 40 something pages left. I stayed up way too late a couple of nights ago, and I only got 5 hours of sleep. Really felt it the next day, because I was reading this book. It has like a tendency to get me hooked, and then I can't stop reading. The chapters are quite long, but even though it's not action-packed all the time, there's just a lot of interesting dynamics and things happening that makes me want to keep reading. At many times during like this book, I've been so frustrated with the characters' choices, but you are following teens, so inevitably you are gonna follow people who like mess up because they're right in the middle of like figuring shit out. Plus, this is like a not regular teen story, like, you know, from someone who, Fawn, who like stands up for herself and does what is best for her, even though it's sort of driven by another person, and sort of like she abandons the plans that she has for herself, but because she believes so strongly, kind of in vampires, but also in like the revolution in a way. And then you have Rachel, who's like grown up and really believed the things that her mom has preached, and she's like breaking away from that. Hopefully. I still haven't finished the book. I will say it's like fairly predictable at certain times, but I actually don't know how it's gonna wrap up. Like I wish there was a bigger reveal about Silver, like Fawn's best friend slash lover. But yeah, some of the characters in here are just like awful. Yeah, but this is a great book to start on because it like really hooked me. I'm gonna pick up this one next that I brought it home with me because it's a new release and I'm still like quite interested in what this one is about, but I don't think I'm gonna get to it tonight. This is playing D&D tonight, so I'm alone, and I was thinking I would edit my witch vlog, which I filmed like 3 months ago. Yep, that's my update. So it's the next morning. I did finish this last night. I'm gonna give a short and sweet wrap up. It was very action packed at the end. There was a lot of things happening. But I feel like it all came together quite well. I feel like the people who needed justice done to them, it was done. But I think it could have been maybe like slightly less like carceral. Maybe. But yeah, I like enjoyed this book. I think that it could have been even more radical, to be honest. Like it could have gone like even further with like the messaging and like the ideal new world visualization. But at the same time, they're teens, they're still living in our world. I get it. I really liked the author's note at the end where she talked a bit about like the world and hearing like inspiration for the book, which Buffy the Vampire Slayer was listed in there too. And it's fun now that like, I don't know, I feel like it's more true than ever how you're 6 people away from everyone else. Like it's just fun to recognize all these names that Z was inspired by when writing this book, which very cool. I don't know how many stars I'm gonna give it, like anything from 4.5 to a 5-star. Like I enjoyed it a lot, even though I have a few critiques, I enjoyed it a lot. Did not start this one, but I am very excited to do so. Yeah, I have no clue what this is going to be like. We are technically open. No one's here. I'm going to start working. I'll check in with you once I can accurately describe this book. Okay. I don't have much time. This is what I'm reading. I'm like more than halfway through. I'm so sorry. It's actually surprisingly difficult to like remember to take a clip and then also have the time to do so. But this, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's like super gothic. Like this is the most kind of reminiscent of like the Frankenstein and Dracula gothic new releases type things that I've read in like ever. Basically, like the way it emulates the style is so accurate, even though like I'm actually not a fan of gothic literature, and I try to like not read gothic vampire stories because I just know that historical type things are not my thing and I'm not gonna like it. But it's done so well that I'm like really getting into it. Like it's really pulling me, getting me into like the gothic headspace in such a cool way. You're following this character Ambrose, who is a vampire, and he's part of this vampire cult, and he's like aware that it's a cult. And the leader is Regina. There's 2 other people in the cult. They live on this castle on a hill, kind of, I think, that is called Frankenstein, like the castle. And Regina has spun these tales of that there's a king on the moon that will like welcome them and accept them, and it's sort of like this made-up religion type thing, but there are also like texts and things that she preaches. And I think Ambrosia doesn't really know if he like believes it or not, but he doesn't have a purpose. He feels very like his existence is very meaningless. He's rather depressed, I would say. And so he follows this, and then things start to happen where he starts to, I mean, he's always kind of like deviated from what's acceptable, as in like he has like sex with this like one guy in town, and he like is curious about the other inhabitants in the town. There's like a very, very small town in a valley, I believe, and I think it's in Germany, like Germany countryside, and it's very ambiguous as to like when it takes place because the language feels quite old, but then sometimes it will use like phrases or reference things that feel more current than I would expect. So it's kind of like it could take place in today, but sort of deal with these like older societies and characters because it's vampires, And yeah, so I'm soon finished with like the second part of the book, because then when the second part started, it was written in you, like in second person. It started being like what's it called? Written like a play as well. And it kind of like really thickened the plot, because after the first part was done, I was kind of like, where is the story going from here? Because this is everything that it says on the back. I don't know how this can go forward. But then it like really upped the game, and I think that the way it's talking about like the queerness or like the themes around being gay and the history of being gay, especially with AIDS and like the demonization of queer people. It really brings that into the story, and with like using vampirism or being a vampire as like analogy or like a metaphor for being queer. And it's really interesting. It's like just a twist that I haven't seen. Like obviously vampires, same as with the other book that I read, vampires and like supernatural things, like, and being othered in this way through supernatural means have been used and are used all the time to represent like queerness or being a minority in the world. But I think the way it's doing it is really like interesting, and I really want to talk about the thing that it's doing, but like I can't. I started like tabbing some things because I'm like, oh my god, it's getting really good. And I'm really surprised because like through the majority of the first part I was like, this is not what I feel like reading right now at all. Someone's coming. So anyways, like what I was saying yesterday, so when I say that it's like written gothically, it's, I think a lot of gothic literature and older literature didn't have like the traditional story structure that we see in a lot of novels today, with the way it's built up, the climax, like the resolution. It's just written very alternatively or like old school in that way, which I'm finding like quite refreshing, oddly. And there was one reference of like what is it called, an instant camera, or like a disposable camera. So I do think it's actually taking place like maybe even today or like in our modern time, even though it really doesn't feel like it. But yeah, I don't want to spoil what actually happens, but there's things that people say like, can you conjure up a picture more repugnant than a man feeding a child from his breast? Which just feels like, yeah, there's a lot of good like commentary and bits in there that I really, really appreciate. And it's taken to the extreme, as in like vampires, and in this case like Ambrose, a man who feeds off of other men, as in like, and they compare that kind of to like a man who is with other men in many ways, and how like against God, and how it is like a demonization, like vampires are demons in many novels, and in the original novels too, you know. I'm on the last part now, and each part is written like a little bit differently. In the last part we get to follow like different characters, but the I perspective is always Ambrose. Like most of it is written in first person or second person, and then other people's perspectives in third person. But yeah, I'm so surprised that I'm liking it. Like, but I think I'm gonna read something more like fun. And I did there was a huge book order that came in yesterday, and I actually ordered a few books for myself for the holiday season for me to enjoy, and I really wanted to do like a mini haul and share it with you. So here are 4 books. I'm gonna start, 5 books actually. I don't know where the last one is. So I'm gonna start with the 2 that are kind of relevant for this vlog, which are 2 vampire books. This is a vampire comic that I've had my eye on for quite a while, A Bite of Pepper by Balazs Lorenzi. I read their other book, like Wolf Pitch, as an arc, and I quite enjoyed it. This is like one of their earlier works, I believe. And yeah, it's vampires, very like chromatic, and I really want to read this one. And I haven't read like a comic in a while. I think someone asked me yesterday if I'd read any comics lately, and I was like, I haven't read a comic in a really long time, and I love comics. And then I also found this one. This is like a fairly new release. It's called Night at the Vampire Castle, a choose your own romance. And historically, I don't really read romance, but I think this is a really good fun. I think this could be really fun. And it's, you know, like with some images and some like paths forward, it really is like a choose your own romance. And the fact that it's like vampire themed, and I do really want to give it a shot. But I already have so many vampire books on this list, and I wasn't really thinking that I would alter it, but like I've just found more and more vampire books and just keep adding on. And then we have 3 books that look really good together. Start with this one. I read this author's like other book. This is Mai Lee. This one's called Break Room. I think it's her newest release. And I read something, The Delegate Dream Department Store. I did not like that book, but I bought it because of the cover, and here yet another cover buy. I did it again, you know? But this one is about a reality show, and I've been getting a lot more into like reality shows in general than I used to. I want to read more about like books that are a reality show. I think it has like an The Office vibe, and I just like read so many queer things now that I'm like, give me some cishet stuff, breath of fresh air. And then this one I found through Malls, on Malls by Moonlight. I think this is like a fairly new release that I found like on one of our posts, and it's like a weird book, you know, and I haven't read one of these in a long time. That's like really actually my bread and butter and the stuff that I think is really yummy. Love this cover and really excited to pick this one up. I have read what it's about many times, but with these books, it's hard to sum up, you know? But yeah, I'm hoping to get to this one this year. And then this one, I had no clue how stunning it was. Like, I literally gasped when I unpacked it. This is another comic, but like, the edges are sprayed, but like in the best way. Like, it's really good quality, the spraying of it. It's so like opaque, and it has this like, I think maybe you can see it, like wavy texture to the front cover. And then the inside, like the comic, is just like absolutely stunning. So wow, I was not prepared for this, and I don't remember where I found this. I maybe could have been a new release. I believe it's not queer, but who knows? Katie Hicks, are you gay? Comment below. So those are some books that I like was very excited to show you. But yeah, it's like a lot going on right now just in my head. It's the end last week in November, which just means like that there's a lot for me to do. Like the newsletter comes out, I have to set up like all the events, coordinate all the events, make all the graphics for all the events, put it up on all the different websites. And then on top of that, I'm doing like the end of year catalog that I'm trying to make time for. And the last week of the month, we're also doing the book club. So I'm also reading like Noema alongside that and doing this vlog, and then I have a bunch of side projects that I've just kind of have to put on the back burner. But yeah, also holiday season coming up, so we're like stocking more books for the holiday season. I have to think about like holiday content so that we can survive this winter. Yeah, it's just like a lot going on, and I'm feeling like a little overwhelmed, and there's like piles of books now all over the place. Books behind me, and we have notebooks. And then these are all going on the shelf soon. Those ones are going in like storage as like extra copies. Also, you know, we just got stickers. Cute little stickers. I'm very happy with them. It's the first stickers that I've ever printed. They're so cute. Anyways, I'm gonna open now. I open in a few minutes. So I'm gonna get ready for that. I'll finish the book like today or tomorrow, and then we can start a new book. Hello friends. I finished this 2 days ago. I liked it. I will say the third part of this book was definitely my least favorite. As some of you might know, I love like a punchy ending. Like I love it when it ends on a bang in some way. And this just really didn't have that. It sort of fizzled out. And I was reading the last like 15 pages and I was so sleepy. And I cannot remember much of anything of what happens in the last 15 pages. But I remember when I was reading it, I was like, this is very lackluster, so, you know, judge me if you want to, but I'm not going to reread the last 15 pages. It was, like, emotionally wrapped up, you know? But I think I got that from everything else I'd read up until then. It was just, like, the least interesting part of the book, and the first two was still good enough for me to, like, give it a 3.5 stars. Like, I enjoyed the uniqueness of this a lot, and reading something that was very different, felt very different, and explored, like, vampires and queerness in a way that I found very interesting. I have also started this book. This is a romance anthology called Blood, Sweat, and Queers. I have not finished like the first story yet. I'm on page 38. Like there's 8 stories in here and they're all fairly long. So I haven't finished it yet. But I really like the introduction actually. I mean, you know, kind of ideally I would just read the introduction written here by Margaret Hall as like an introduction to this video, because it explores kind of the history of vampires in literature and media, and also in like the cultural zeitgeist, and how that's connected to queerness also through history. So that I was like, great context. So, you know, if there's like a teaser or something of this book online somewhere, maybe you can check out the introduction if you're interested, because I found it very interesting. It's just like 9 pages. But yeah, I'm already excited by like this. It's written so well, like the first one so far. It has like non-binary characters. But yeah, it seems like it's going to focus a lot on desire and, you know, like this vampire thing of like being so emotional, because I think vampires in our culture now are seen as very emotional and very like have like desire a lot, intensely. Also when it comes to love and passion, but also what is it called? Agony and pain, you know? I think I'm just gonna update you, give like some short sentences after each story or something like that. Now I'm gonna get some coffee because I haven't had any yet. And then it's the 2nd of December, so I have to change like the window display, like the highlighted books. Right now it's like books on sex work, but I think I don't want to do too much like Christmassy things because I don't like the Christmassy season, but we do have like a stack of Christmas books, some queer Christmas books that I should put up. So I really got the work cut out for me today. Like usual. Hello, my people. I'm halfway through this book. Are we seeing a pattern? I read 3, 4, it may be stories in this now. They're very varied when it comes to like just the feeling that they're giving me. The first one felt rather modern with kind of like the same rules in vampirism as like Twilight. It was about these 2 characters who are in different like vampire clans who have a history of like hate-love, and it all kind of like spirals in this one scene, so you learn a lot from like actions. A lot of them have like non-binary representation, which is really cool. The one I'm reading now is really, really long and kind of talk more about like vampires being a part of nature and keeping like equilibrium, because it started off with a scene of a vampire killing all these people who were ruining like the land and cutting down trees and saving this fairy, and then the romance is going to be between like the fairy and the vampire, which I think is so nice. And then there was this other one that was kind of like a vampire that lived underground in oil essentially, and it was a little bit of like a revenge story on humanity for drilling for oil. So actually, I don't know, I'm really liking how the stories are like queer beyond sexuality and gender in the themes as well, and with some like climate justice themes, more like climate revenge themes. But yeah, funny enough, the first story, the main character is called Ambrose, which was the name of like the main character in the previous book I read. Then there was one that was like, I guess kind of kinky, of these like 2 vampires who had like played out this hunting scene just for fun, that were like very old lovers. So it's not very like smutty at all. It's just kind of talking about different forms of like desire and fulfilling that desire, and many of them like feel erotic even though there's no erotic action happening. So yeah, I'm actually enjoying it, and that's my update for now. It's going very slow because I'm very stressed about a bunch of stuff. Like I just finished closing the pond. It's like 8 on a Friday. I'm tired. Yeah, I'm very tired. But I will be feeling a lot better in 1 week. Excited for that. Still into the vampire lit, but I'm also starting to get excited for reading other stuff. I'm like not even halfway through my stack of vampire lits. I met someone at the pond the other day that like had written their thesis on lesbian vampires, and I was like, tell me more. Okay, I'm gonna leave now. End of this day. So I have one short story left in this one. There was the one that I was talking to you about last time, which had like a lot of like toxic behavior. There was like physical violence towards their partner in it, and then there was one where they were like having sex right after one of them had like a breakdown, and it was like never dived into until later. And it's like, yeah, you're respecting that person's boundaries with like not forcing them to talk about what just happened, like the anxiety attack, but also it feels very weird to then just go from that to like kissing. I did not like that energy. And then the last one I read was so uncomfortable. It was like this artificially made vampires through this like medical organization. Our main character had taken part in the study, and they didn't know that it was basically going to turn them into a vampire. And then it ended, I'm going to spoil it, it ended with like all these right-wing people who like hated the vampires in the medical institution for like doing this, came in with guns and like killed the main character, and the story was over. Like it was all the last ones I've read are so weird, and there have been like good parts of all of them. Not my vibe. So This last one is fairly short. Really hoping it pulls it all together because I'm ready to dive into my next book. Yeah, so that's a little book update. Hello, my lovely online friends. It's been like a week and a half. It's been absolutely wild. Just too much going on. A little update on the, what was it, Sweat something and Queers? Blood, Sweat, and Queers? Which I just realized is Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but Queers. Sometimes I'm a little late with the joke. I think the last story was Matt. I don't remember it. It was a long time ago now. I think I ended up giving the collection like a 3. Very middle of the road. Maybe even less. I'm not sure. I also finished this book, unfortunately. So this video is a bit more like a wrap up, but with more updates and themed, really. This is Dead Collections by Isaac Fellman. Very trans mask. You're following Sol, who works in an archive. He got turned into a vampire basically by a hospital after he got tetanus, and it was gonna kill him. So he got turned into a vampire. He lives at these archives where he archives, documents and stuff. He's not really supposed to be living there, but he does. He goes in like once a week to get like these blood transfusions because he can live off of like bad blood or like blood that won't be going to humans, essentially. He's just kind of stuck, because he lives in the same place that he works. He just does the same thing. He doesn't really have any friends. And in this book, the vampirism is really portrayed as like, not a decay, exactly, sort of like a decay, but like a frozen in time, like anguishing state. It's just devoid of like change and movement. And it's like rather anxiety inducing almost. They talk about in this book how vampires actually have a very short lifespan because even though they can live for such a long time, most vampires don't, because it's actually so difficult to stay away from the sun, which is so true for all of these books that like where vampires are integrated into society, like realistically. If it's the same rules that you die straight away, it would just be so hard for vampires to live for a very long time, unless you were like not part of society. And so the plot of the book is that they meet Else because Else's wife has died. Her name is Tracy. She was the creator of this very specific like sci-fi show that both Else and Sol were huge fans of when they were like teenagers, and is kind of like queer coded. Sol wants to archive like these texts from Tracy, but it's really about the relationship that Sol and Else develop throughout the book, and it kind of like the book starts where their relationship starts and ends when their relationship ends, and there's a lot of like processes that Sol goes through. It's like very transformational period for him. It's a very unique book, both like the premise of Sol and archives and him working with the leftovers from dead people when he is kind of the leftovers from himself in a weird way. He also like started testosterone 1 year before dying, and so he's sort of stuck in his transition when he died, essentially. And it just feels like a very like trans mask book, and I honestly don't love a lot of the takes in this book in general. It feels very slow, but I think that makes sense for this book and like what it's about. My main qualm about it is that it feels like just very cold. It feels very cold, and we're supposed to be kind of like rooting for this relationship between Sol and Else, but it just doesn't make sense. We're not there emotionally. They're saying things, and there's a lot of interesting like reflections or even like thought patterns from all these characters that I honestly think are quite unlikable. I don't think they're supposed to be unlikable though, TBH. But there's so little emotion to me. I think if this book like really leaned into the emotions, and I think maybe it could just be Isaac Fellman's writing that feels very cold to me, but the relationship just started up very fast. I just couldn't see the two characters clearly. And then by the end, I was sort of on board. I didn't get like a proper feeling for who Else really was, which was very frustrating. And there's a lot of like toxic dynamics that both in like Sol's workplace, but in also other relationships that he has with people like out and about, or like interactions. And it really like uses vampirism as a metaphor for, like being disabled, I think, and being trans and just othered in certain ways when you're like asking the world to accommodate you for a thing that they might think is a unfavorable quality of some sort. And there were a lot of like those types of dynamics and conversations. I think this book could have been like tighter and more emotional, and then I would have really loved it. I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars probably. I like the uniqueness of this book, and like I think if it was not trans or queer, I think I would have actually disliked it, to be honest. But I think it just like it, this book being trans makes so much sense, and I like the way that was done, I think. But I think it's such an uncomfortable take on vampires, us this like being very stuck in, and there was no change happening. And I've never viewed vampires that way. And I think vampires are so cool, and like in like the general cultural zeitgeist, that portraying them as something like truly unfavorable, like an unfavorable state of being in this way that's not like sexy and bloody and whatever, it felt odd and counterintuitive, but interesting. So I don't know. Hello. I'm feeling really good today. I feel like, you know, it is basically the holiday season, and I'm like release of all responsibilities. The pond is currently open, but no one's here. It's a Sunday. We're gonna have a full day of like board games, which is super exciting. So it's the calm before the storm, I hope. The positive storm. I'm reading 2 books. These 2, I've read most of this. It took me like 3 days to get through. I'm gonna finish it now. I read like The Wolf Pitch by this author, Balas Lorenzi, and I think maybe I like that one more than I like this one. There is just something with like the story, the characters, even like the dialogue, the drawing. It's not gelling as well as like I would have liked. You're following this like world where vampires are kind of like commonplace. Our main character is a vampire, but she's born from like vampire parents, and to be like fully stuck in time or become like a real vampire, she needs to find a bride, which is like no matter what gender it is, it's always a bride who she has to turn, and when she turns the other person into a vampire or makes them her bride, she becomes like an actual vampire, and her parents are like really pressuring her to do this because it's about time, but she is having a lot of resistance. And then during one of these galas, like vampire galas, she meets this like woman working there who works as a server for the gala, and they kind of strike up like a friendship, a flirty friendship, and yeah, and things spiral. Same with like the other Lorenzi I read. The climax was like a big argument between 2 people, or between the characters. I think it's a little bit too bright for me, to be honest. Like, I do really like a color scheme that's very coordinated, but I think it's a little too bright. Sometimes, like, it's a little bit too, like, flirty in a way that doesn't make sense, like the dialogue. But it's, like, just a fine comic book, you know? It's a good time. So I'm looking forward to finishing it, but I could have lived my life never having missed reading it, you know? Let's see how that one wraps up. The Fell of Dark is the exact book that I thought it would be, and I'm really excited about it. It's so Buffy the Vampire Slayer coded. So you're following our main character, Augie, who lives in this town that's known as like the nexus for attracts like mystical energies or whatever, which is exactly like in Buffy, you know? I cannot remember the town in Buffy right now, but that's also like a nexus for magical energies. And there is vampires that are kind of known in this world to exist, which I know they're not in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but they're known to exist. But the town does everything to like not have them be part of society and like warn people and hunt them in a way. So they're not very common. They're not causing that much chaos. It's just every now and then, like once a year, someone dies or something like that, or goes missing. Augie is having a lot of crushes, a very horny 16-year-old, which I think is like quite funny because I think it's accurate for like a 16-year-old boy. This is a queer vampire blog, so Augie's gay, and his best friend Aubrey, I believe, is a lesbian. The plot sort of like starts off with Augie having all these like visions in his dreams and like losing track of time. And sometimes like he disassociates, he doesn't know has happened, and then he meets this vampire who's like all suave and hot, and Augie's like, this is a red flag, what's going on? But he has a lot of answers to what he's been going through and the things he's been experiencing, and this vampire is basically like, you're the chosen one. And that's where I've gotten to. I'm only on page like 70. It's taken quite a while to like get started, but it's a fairly thick book, and I think it's gonna be a lot of like mystery, or like there's this art teacher who has this similar vibe of like Giles, that he's like, I think he's hiding something, or he knows something like that. There are witches in this book too. I think it's just gonna be a really like fun time, and I love the fact that it's like the chosen one, Buffy vibes. Like, this is what I want. So I'm very excited for this, actually. And it's a very easy read, you know, it's like young adult, but I think it's gonna be quite exciting. I'm like at work, but it's basically vacation, you know? I just have to sit here, maybe reply to some emails, but it's gonna be very chill. Okay, let's talk about some books. I did finish this, and it was very sweet, like the ending of it. It was such a nice wrap up, and it was very like relationship wise, like very consoling conversations, very wholesome, and everyone kind of got like what was best for them type of situation. So it was very sweet. I liked it, but like very mid comic book experience. Then I've read quite a bit in this. I have this part left. It's quite slow, actually. It feels fast paced because the stakes are so incredibly high, but like nothing is really happening that much. Like, it's fairly slow. It has so much lore. We learn so much about like the history of the vampires, what the corruptor or like Augie is, like all these different like clans, organizations through time who have wanted the corruptor to emerge / not emerge. What are their motivations? So we get these chapters that are the most annoying thing to read. Yeah, it's just visually, it's so hard to read, of like way in the past. So yes, I have to finish this in 2 days because it is currently the 30th of December. And I still haven't completed my Goodreads goal, which was 81 books. So I'm planning to read 1 comic book of these ones today and 1 tomorrow, so that I can actually complete my Goodreads goal. And I'm planning to read them anyway, so it's just like a good excuse to read some comics. So I'll be reading this one while I work at the pond today, and maybe a bit of this one too, because I need to finish those as well. Yeah. Oh, did I want to say something about this? I'm like rather frustrated with Augie at times. Like, it's so repetitive. Like, he trusts people that he knows that he shouldn't trust. And I also understand his situation because he doesn't know the truth at all, and no one seems to be telling him the truth. So, but he doesn't have anyone to rely on. You need someone to rely on. But instead of just like telling his best friend, which would be like the ultimate safest person to trust, who might not know anything, but at least you have that like trust going on, he like tells all these other people who are like vampires and like have all these nefarious reasons. So yeah, it's a little messy on the lore, but I also appreciate it because it is a really fun time. I wish the stakes were like a little bit lower, because it starts talking about some pretty deep things. Ultimately, he's gonna die, which is like not what we want, but I'm sure they're gonna find a way to save him, you know? We'll see. It's kind of a very mid, like, I guess, fun, fast-paced book, but fun young adult vampire story. Okay, wow. It's the end of the day. All I did was read this one, but it took me longer than expected. Like, it's quite a thick manga in my opinion, and I loved it so much. Like, I kind of thought this was sort of gonna be like, I don't know, a bit of like a DIY trashy manga, but that's totally based on my perception. That's based on nothing. You know, it's just the book that I saw that was LGBT plus and had vampire in the title, so I didn't really have any expectations, which is maybe why I liked it so much. In this world, you're following this vampire who lives in kind of like the demon kingdom, and there are many different types of demons, but then he watches a commercial on the TV of like this bathhouse, and he's like, wow, I think it's a commercial, but maybe he's like spying on the human realm. I'm not sure. But watching all these people go into the bath and like feeling so relaxed and his body's hurting, he's like, I'm gonna go to the human realm and visit this bathhouse. So he does, and there he meets Sakura. Our demon's name is Luca, and yeah, Sakura is like the person who kind of runs the bathhouse. There's a kid there too, Ume or something, Ume, and yeah, this is them. That's Sakura, that's Ume, and such a cute kid. Oh my god. Luca, our vampire demon, drinks blood from Sakura to basically like stabilize his demon powers because it's unstable in like the human world, and therefore they become like bonded or whatever. But then the rest of it is really wholesome, and there's this line where Luca's like, if I really need my power, if I'm all drained out of like my demon power, I'm gonna have to have sex with the person I bonded with. But it's kind of one of those like, okay, type of situations that just never lead to anything. It seems like the author has been posting some of these online, so maybe the story is like continuing there, because I think it's 6 chapters and they all kind of have their individual stories that also tie together. But the humor is really, really funny. Like I really love the humor, and I also loved how like the characters are not very stereotypical. They have sort of like what is it called? Oh my god, I was thinking of this all day and I can't remember. What is it called when it's like moody sunshine dynamic? It's called something else. It's not moody. But you get what I'm saying. It's like a moody person and a sunshine person. But they have a lot of like more complex quirks to them. They're not just like one is broody and one is sunshine. They have like ups and downs and a lot of variation in like their expression and who they are as people, which I really appreciated. Like in a manga. And yeah, there's just so many like funny scenes and a lot of funny plot points. There's a lot to it, like the world building as well. But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. And yeah, the humor is really, really good. This character comes in and that bit's really funny. The whole like theme of the book is community essentially, because this bathhouse is not just like a bathhouse, a business, that generational business, but everyone in this city and in the town, they like trade goods with each other, they show kindness. There's a whole community around like the bathhouse and the city, and it's really like wholesome in that way. Like people take care of each other, they like feel very preciously towards each other, and it's yeah, super nice to see. And they kind of it also has a bit of like a found family dynamic, because it's run by the bathhouse is run by the grandpa, Sakura, and then his little brother who's a kid, Ume, and then the vampire Luca kind of ends up staying there for a bit and really learns like the joy community of like working at this place and being in the human realm. So it's super cute. I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 or 4.75 stars. So this was like a happy surprise. I didn't realize it would be as good as it was. So super cool. Hello, it is the last day of the year and I still haven't completed my Goodreads goal. So I think I have 1 or 2 books to go, but that's perfect because I plan on finishing The Fell of Dark and the Confessional, which I'm reading now. This one, I'm using my glasses as a bookmark, so it's a little unstable, but I've read the small bit. I'm enjoying it so far, but it's very like cleverly constructed, so you have to read between the lines or between the panels, so to speak. The way like time moves and scenes are shifting. I think it's fairly advanced like comic work, which is cool to see, but it challenges me a little bit more when I'm reading, which is completely fine. You're following Cora. It is 1922 New Orleans. She's part of this coven that runs a speakeasy. So the fashion and stuff is like very, yeah, just like of its time, and it's cool to see such like a concentrated like aesthetic, as well as just like, I mean, I can open up on the page that I am on. The color scheme is just like beautiful. I really love like the character design. In the beginning you get dropped right in, so there's a lot of characters and names and stuff, but there are all these illustrations in the back that Paige has made like for the characters when working on them, that shows you the characters, so you can just flip to the back and see that, so it's not really a problem. Yeah, and Cora, did I say Coven of Witches? I've been editing the witch vlog. Coven of Vampires, if I said witches. Coven of Vampires, and Cora is a vampire. She's not happy with it, and she's kind of taking solace in going to these like confessionals and confessing to this priest that she's actually in love with, about the fact that she's a vampire and she's killing men mostly. It's not like LGBT so far, but a lot of the themes and the way the coven works and how they are is very queer, because she's obviously in love with a man. So I don't know how LGBT plus this book is, even though it is fairly queer by itself. And I also don't know anything about the author, Paige Hender. Tried to look it up, she, her, who knows, right? But I'm still gonna include it in this vlog as like a queer vampire book. I hope it gets a little gay, at least. Maybe some of these vampires in the coven can be a little gay. That would be nice. Okay, I've got less than 3 minutes to record this, which is probably good. The Fellow Dark, I'm back to work, by the way. Finished this for the new year. Hallelujah. I enjoyed this. I'm still only giving it 3.25 stars, but this is like a fun, fairly easy young adult. I think for me personally, the stakes were a little high because it's about the life and death of our main character, and it felt like very fun and light with like, what's it called? This like a three-way romance. What is that called? Oh my god, I'm blanking. Feels like it's supposed to be fun and like be a good time, and yet like it's like, is he gonna die? You know, like, so it felt like a little bit like a lot for the vibe of the book. And I think there's a lot of like conversations happening and a lot of like back and forth of like, who can I trust, who can I not trust. Like, I wish this book was almost, I want to say like 100 pages shorter. It's not that it's meandering, it's more like it's just not very tight in like the storytelling and what it chooses to highlight. Like, I think it could have been condensed a bit more and it would have been better, which I think is like my main critique of it, just because it feels too long and there's a lot of lore. And I'm also wondering if like some of the world building could have been like cut, like certain storylines. But yeah, I had a really good time reading this. Yeah, that was that. I'm glad to have like filled a little bit of like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer need in me, so that's good. I don't know what I'm reading next. I'm gonna take a bit of a break from this vlog, like read something else, because technically next up would be Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which is such a large book, and I would like to start the new year with like something a little bit more fast-paced. So may the vampire vlog continue. I'm excited to be back to work. I'll talk with you once I've started the next book. Hi, it's a bit of an awkward angle, but we have a reading update. I have officially started Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil. I have left the book at home because it's so incredibly heavy. I have not read a book this long in ages, let alone a hardback. It's so heavy. I've probably made it like 130 pages through-ish, something like that. And I'm getting a pretty good grasp of the story. We're following 3 characters, 2 of which might be the same character, but I'm not sure yet. But the main ones are Maria, that starts off in 1530s. She's this red-haired, fiery, very I'm not like other girls vibe. She's just like bold and hungry for life, and she still ends up but marrying this man who is just an asshole, doesn't care about her, run-of-the-mill misogynist of the time. He has money though, and that's I think what she deems as success, but it's not really what she thought it would be like or as glamorous of a life that she wanted to have. She still feels very boxed in and limited and not respected at all. Not the life she imagined. I'm not going to say more in her perspective. And then you have Alice, and her perspective takes place in 2019. She is a lesbian. She's just gotten to college. She grew up in Scotland, I believe. And this is her first time like being independent, but college life is just not what it seems like, and she's kind of struggling a bit with finding like her people, feeling like she's living, you know? So those are the 2 women. I am sure they will cross over. Maybe they already have. It's very like casually, it's very easy to read. V. Schwab uses a lot of parentheses, like side note type of in the text, which I'm not used to. I'm enjoying it so far. Like, it's so easy to read. Like, it's very captivating. I'm just like going through it, and I've really been enjoying like spending like 1.5 to 2 hours each night reading. So that's been so nice, and I think I'm gonna be able to read it a little bit faster than I expected considering the length. I honestly don't have a lot of like thoughts in general, and also when it comes to like the vampire aspect of the book, I'm not sure how much to say, like how the vampirism works in this book. I'm not really sure what like angle this vlog has. Are we here to explore how queerness and vampirism coincide? Are we here to explore different forms of vampirism, what it says about queer culture? I don't know. Vampires and lesbianism, I will read that any day. So I think yay me for updating at 120 pages when I've gotten into the book. I will update you around the 2/3 mark, and then when I finish the book. 2026 has treated me well so far. That's all you need to know. Hello. It's so late and I'm so tired and I just want to go home. I just finished vacuuming, but I'm here to do a short update. I've read so much of this book now. I think I'm at like 70%, honestly. I was going to update halfway through, but I've just not found the opportunity to like be alone and talk to you for such a long time. Despite the fact that I've read like 70% of this book, which is like above 400 pages or something, I do not have that many thoughts. I think because this book was pitched as like a toxic lesbians book, made me think, one, that it's a romance, like a romance of some sort, you know? And two, that it was gonna be like toxic, you know? And it's first now where I'm seeing this like kind of, but it's also kind of frustrating when people use this word like toxic to describe so many different things, or like behavioral patterns, or like dynamics, because I do think it can be complicated, but also that's what I'm thinking now at 70%. We'll see how it goes, you know? But essentially it kind of just feels like the whole book is about, the fuck is her name? Alice. Like what the history that occurred to lead to the situation where Alice gets turned into a vampire. Super mild spoiler. It kind of feels like that because it's, you know, it starts with Maria / Sabine and her history, starting from 1500s. Another character gets introduced, Lottie / Charlotte, Charlotte, in the 1800s, and then now time Alice. So it's kind of like the history of things that needed to happen for us to be here today. And I'm just kind of left with the question and like, and so what? Which is like the worst thing ever to be left with, I guess. A lot of the women in the book feel very like, I'm not like other girls narratives. The side characters in the story, like all the women are not portrayed in very dynamic ways, or given like respect, or as if they have agency or are making any choices in their life. And I know for certain women in history, like it's true that they just followed what was easy, but I feel like they're not given like respect or like shown in a good light just because they chose to do this, or because they were led down this path and decided to follow it. I don't know. I just feel like the other women, the side characters that we don't see so much, are so flat, and it's bothering me. On top of that, we're getting so much of like Alice's backstory with like her sister growing up in Scotland, their dynamic, what happened after their mother died and their stepmother came in, and it's just like a whole lot of grief that's expressed in their sister dynamic that I'm just not seeing why it's important, and I can't make myself care about it. And so right now I'm feeling very like meh about the book. Like I feel like I'm gonna give it 3 stars. It did not need to be this long. There's a lot of stuff in there, and there's also a lot of like killing and brutality that just feels very unnecessary, and it's not helping me learn more about the characters. It's just very lengthy for no reason. But at the same time, when I'm reading it, it's very easy to read, and I can read like 50 pages in one sitting easy, which is a lot of pages for me. So I guess an enjoyable read, but when I look at the contents and think about the plot and the characters, it's very underwhelming. which I guess is just like the general vibe with popular books, I suppose. But that's my little update. Sorry about the rambling. My brain is everywhere. Ooh. And I need to go home now. So, okay. I'll talk to you when I finish the book. Hello. I've got my coffee. It is officially my birthday. And I have finished, finally, Bury Your Bones in the Midnight Soil. I would actually honestly love to know when was the last time I read a book that was over 500 pages. Because I think the longest one I read last year was like 450 or something. So it's been a long time. Not really for any specific reason. You know, I just haven't been pulled towards like the plots and themes of some of the longer books. But I finished this book. The last 40 pages feels like kind of like the whole point of the story in a weird way. Like it's where everything happens, because we get so much backstory of all of these three women. And I think saying that the book is about toxic lesbians is very unfair, honestly. I would say there's one character that is abusive, like heavily abusive, and then one who's like struggles sometimes, and like in a reasonable way, but I wouldn't say abusive, just lack of responsibility, I guess. And then our last character is just kind of insufferable. None of them are likable at all. I don't like any of them. And at the end, I was just kind of like, okay, that happened. I'm not sure what the point was, to be honest. I think when it comes to like why the author chose to like make, obviously like lesbian vampires, that's a hot subject. I love it. So I'm not gonna doubt that. Like, why would you want to? I need more coffee. Why would you want to make like a story like this? But I do think it's interesting, like the way that the characters kind of feel in the story when they know that they're kind of immortal, or they don't need to. They're not going to be able to live a normal life anyway. They sort of like feel so free. They can do whatever. They can express themselves like sexually. They can be in relationships with women. They can have any type of life that they want to. And I think that's fascinating, because there's not that much that changes. Like, yeah, you're technically immortal and you have this like strength and power physically, but there's not like, it's like a state of mind almost, you know? And I understand, like, if I was immortal, honestly, I probably wouldn't live my life differently at this moment in time. But I understand this feeling of like just wanting to like run away. You can do whatever because you can. But it's such a weird mix, because it's that together with, I don't know. Yesterday I was at this panel and I had no thoughts in my brain. And I also have no thoughts in my brain today. The panel didn't go very well. And then in the night, I was just laying in bed thinking about the subject that we were talking about, community. And I had so many intelligent thoughts. And it's like, of course, right before I'm going to bed. So I couldn't sleep until 4, and now it's like the morning. We haven't opened up the pond. I'm late to being here. I barely had any coffee and breakfast. And now I'm supposed to talk about this book intelligently. I think I've said, honestly, all the most important things about this book. I don't know if I need to talk more about it. I think all the main characters were quite unlikable. I think they were also rather flat. I'm like, this is such a large book, and we got to know so many things about their life. But yet, I feel like they're so, flat as characters. Like, Alice's only, like, character trait is, like, her relationship with her sister, and how it's, like, formed her whole life. And I'm like, I'm sure there's more to you, but I have no clue what it is. Every time it would flash back to, like, Alice's, like, backstory, or, like, her having these, like, flashbacks that would just, like, come to her, I would be like, oh, no, here we go again. I don't really care. And then there's, like, some sort of reveal about that in a way, and I'm just like, it's very obvious. So it was very unsatisfying. And then even learning all about, like, Lottie and Sabine's life, they've lived for, like, centuries. And yet, how do I feel like, how are the characters so flat, you know? Like, I don't believe it. I want to know more, like, specific things about them that make them, like, unique, interesting characters. Somehow they're all sort of, like, stereotypes in a weird way. Like, I wish there was more nuance to the characters. I wish I liked parts of them. And there's so much like ruthless killing that I didn't enjoy reading. It's honestly heartbreaking at times. Yeah, I don't know whether to give this like 3 stars or 2.75 stars, but I think I'm personally gonna feel sad if I spent this much time with a book and I give it 2.75 stars. Even though that's more what I'm feeling. I'm kind of like, I read that. Sure, it was like page turning and kept me interested, but it wasn't good. I'm glad that this is over, even though I'm proud of myself and there was a journey and I enjoyed getting back into V. Schwab, even though I think this will be it for me. Those are my reflections on it. So I'm gonna think a little bit about what to do about this vlog. Maybe you'll see a wrap up next. Maybe I'll start my next book. If I read one more, it'll be 10 books for this video. I've never done that big of a video before. I know this is like a wrap up vlog merge type of video, but TLDR, I'll keep you updated. So it's been like a week and a half probably, and I've gone through my head, what should I do? Should I continue this vlog? But the thing is, the vampire books, they keep popping up. There just keeps being more queer vampire books I'm seeing everywhere. It's like really having a moment now. So I've decided that there will just be another one at some point, because I am also working on like a collaborative queer vampire comic with someone. And this was really inspirational, like this whole vlog, reading a lot of different vampire stories. It was really inspirational for me to like build a world in my head of vampire lore. I know I didn't talk so much about the interconnectedness of queerness and vampire, but I think sometimes it is, you know, basic of sorts, of like the desire for something that is seen as like not acceptable, desire for something that's seen as like dirty, you know, the ravenousness, the hunger of being denied something and then being able to indulge as much as you want. It's also a lot in these stories like when you're ostracized by just who you are in the world, like vampires not being accepted or not natural, it opens the door for you being able to create the life that you want, because there's few vampire stories where they're integrated into society, because there's always this conversation around like vampires are free, you know, when you're immortal, when immortality is placed upon you, when all you need is like human flesh and blood or whatever. Yeah, and then the obvious, I guess, like, you know, it's like the antichrist if you won't view like religion and queerness, or like Christianity and queerness as opposites, which obviously not, but like historically in many ways it represents like the devil, and I don't know. I think there's so much to it. I don't know why like vampires resonates with queer people, me included. I love a good vampire story. It almost feels the least amount of supernatural that you can go with supernatural, which I think is also why it appeals to people. It's just like a slightly bit magical. Humans are obviously like obsessed with immortality. Yeah, and I'm sure there are even more fascinating narratives. I want to keep my queer vampire journey going. I'd love to read them all, but I am very behind on my reading goal. I'm behind on like things I want to read, and I'm feeling a little burned out on the vampire stuff, you know? Maybe I'll pick this up once I've gotten like far into the process of the vampire comic, and then kind of use this vlog or some of these or whatever it's gonna be to promote my comic. I don't know. But should we get the books out? I feel like this vlog took a bit of a downturn. I was very passionate in the beginning, but what can you expect when there's so many books? Here we have the beautiful stack of books that I've read for this vlog. A lot of really good ones. My favorite one out of all these was by far the young adult, surprisingly, Fawn's Blood. I loved the Vampire in the Bathhouse comic. I loved how gothic the blood is bright as the moon was. It was very well done. I loved how new age and different the Dead Collections was, the art style, big book. But anyways, thank you so much for following me with this vlog. I don't think I'll be doing this format again. I just wanted to try it. Let me know if you have any recommendations for queer vampire stories down below, because obviously I need more. There's not enough. I wish you all an amazing, brilliant day. Take care of yourself and your loved ones, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.